Live from WBFF TV in Baltimore, this is breaking news.
And Fox 45 News coming on the air following three big breaking stories. We're following the manhunt underway right now in Maine after a gunman kills at least 18 people and injures 13 others.
This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens.
On his front steps, word today, the body of the suspect.
Well, it's awful. I mean, what's happened in our community, it's just to have one of our premier judges executed like that. I mean, it's unbelievable.
But first, the FBI has raided one of the city's safe streets locations, and sources tell Fox 45 News it is over possible gang affiliation.
There are people with ill will involved. There are people who are operating under the disguise that they are trying to reform in some way. And I'm so sorry to the people who are involved with good intentions, because you're involved with a program that has no intention on doing what it says that it's trying to do.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Trouble tonight for Baltimore's flagship violence intervention program. For 2 years now, Fox 45 News has been investigating the Safe Streets program that's been shrouded in secrecy. This morning, federal prosecutors and FBI agents stormed a location in East Baltimore investigating those who work for the program. Fox 45 News has complete team coverage of today's developments.
Our reporters will walk you through our years of investigation leading up to today, starting with Mackenzie Frost outside the location that was raided today. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Mary and Kai, so we know that several FBI agents were here earlier this morning at the Safe Streets location in Bel Air, Edison, executing a search warrant. Sources close to that investigation tell us this probe is possibly connected to potential gang affiliation. And we know that this isn't the first time that this has been an issue for Safe Streets.
Acquitted. However, the Scroggins family is highly critical of the Safe Streets program, calling it, quote, a criminal enterprise.
My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
And our coverage continues now. Jeff Abel is live with more coverage on Safe Streets for us today. Jeff?
Well, you know, Safe Streets now has a roster of former employees who had vowed to fight crime in this city, but instead have been convicted of committing crimes. You may remember a sweeping federal indictment accused Vernon Harper, a violence interrupter in Brooklyn, of possessing fentanyl with the intent of distributing it while working at the Safe Streets office in Brooklyn. He did plead guilty and is now serving 18 months in prison. And in 2021, another federal indictment accused Safe Streets worker Ronald Alexander of being an armed drug dealer and selling fentanyl and other drugs at the same time he was supposed to be fighting crime. Now, earlier this year, we did question the mayor about the growing list of tax-paid workers who were contributing to crime instead of preventing it.
Just like any other employee in any other industry, if we find out that folks are in that, whether they're a Safe Streets worker, whether they're a police officer, whether they're a Rec and Parks worker, we'll address that through law enforcement.
Safe Streets has long attempted to hire what so-called trusted members of the community as staff members, but it is still unclear, no answer on exactly what qualifies as a trusted member of the community. We're live at City Hall. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Here's where our investigation stands into Safe Streets. City leaders have refused to reveal the names of those who work for the organization. Earlier this year, Shantae Jackson stepped down as director of Monzi. She didn't give any reason and also refused to speak with Fox 45 News about why she was stepping down. We tried to ask her about the Safe Streets program several times, but she didn't answer our questions.
Director Jackson, can I ask you a couple of questions?
I think the mayor said meet us at the next.
Are you going? You have to realize that we have a job and we have the right to ask questions and get information out. Director Jackson, can we talk about the multi-year Safe Streets contracts?
We don't have any comment today.
I know that you announced your resignation. You're planning to leave. Can you say where you plan to go?
Let me stop right here.
Okay.
Never, ever will I prioritize any news about me over top of news about our young people.
That's why I didn't
so
ask
we
during
can
the
save
press
that question for a time when I'm ready to share it. Thank you.
Monzi is now being run by interim director Stephanie Mavronis. A month after she was chosen, Baltimore saw its largest mass shooting in recent history. 28 people were shot, 2 people were killed in South Baltimore during the Brooklyn Day community event. Safe Streets workers were there the morning of the shooting and said they mediated 5 conflicts. Monzi says those mediations were successful, but they won't say what happened during them, what a mediation is, or the criteria for a successful mediation. Fox 45 News asked to see the form Monzi says it uses to evaluate mediations, but the mayor refused to hand it over.
Can the public see a blank form?
I think the public should trust and know, just like they trust our police officers, that these lifesavers are out there doing their work.
We are taking this as an opportunity to look really closely about what's documented and what's not, and as an area of improvement. We would have hoped that we received a call sooner, and once we heard about the incident, we were able to proactively reach out. But, you know, we talked about how the work that police do is a judgment call. This is human work, too. And so there are some judgment calls that relate to that.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor continues our live team coverage right now with reaction from City Hall. Rebecca.
Yeah, Kai, many of those inside City Hall have been demanding more transparency from Safe Streets and Monzi for months now. And today, those frustrations boiling over for one council member. Take a look. This afternoon, Councilman Eric Costello taking to Twitter to slam Monzi Director Shantae Jackson for a critical op-ed she wrote about him and Councilman Yitzi Schleifer back in July. Costello's tweet reads, quote, "Remember when the former director of Monzi chided us for having the audacity to ask hard questions about Safe Streets? Yeah, I do. Both Schleifer and Costello have been spearheading growing calls for an audit of the city's public safety agency. The way the program is currently structured, the contracts, employees, and day-to-day operations typically available to the public are hidden. This despite the program being funded by your taxpayer dollars."
Monzi is a city agency. It is right here in City Hall, and so an agency like that should just be part of the agencies that are audited.
I would encourage, Monzi to do is to start being transparent and start answering questions so that we don't have to wait for an audit.
And Costello and Schleifer aren't alone in their calls for more transparency. Recently, Councilman Antonio Glover even took those calls a step further by requesting a funding freeze.
Right now, I think that until we start to see transparency in data, I think that money should be held to a halt.
Now today I sent questions to the entire city council asking for their reaction to the FBI raid on the Safe Streets location and if they support calls for an audit on the $20 million agency. Mark Conway, head of the Public Safety and Government Operations Committee, responded with a statement reading, quote, "This is concerning to see and I am seeking additional information. We should always expect public safety agencies and those that receive city funds to carry out important public safety initiatives to follow the law." So far, no other city council member has responded, and they have all ignored my request for an interview. In Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
All right, Rebecca, thank you. We'd like you to weigh in on our question of the day. Should Safe Streets be immediately shut down? Vote right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote. We'll check back in at 4:30.
And we'll have more coverage straight ahead at 4:30. We take a deep dive into the BGF gang, plus a live interview on the continued push on how Monzi spends your tax dollars. And you can continue to trust Fox 45 News to investigate Safe Streets. You can catch all our previous reporting right now at foxbaltimore.com.
breaking news. The man suspected of killing a Maryland judge is dead. The Washington County Sheriff's Office says it has found the body of 49-year-old Pedro Argote in a heavily wooded area in Williamsport. His body was found a mile from where authorities found his car this past weekend. Officers moments ago said the community is safe for tonight with Argote's body located.
It's relief, but it's still a tragedy that we're dealing with. Most of us up here, we just came from Judge Wilkinson's viewing, met with the family. They were very appreciative. It brings a little bit of closure to them, but it's still a tragedy. They lost a husband, a father, and a brother.
Officials believe Argote shot and killed Judge Andrew Wilkinson October 19th after Wilkinson presided over a divorce hearing for Argote. In that hearing, Argote lost custody of his children and home. Washington County Police say they are looking into ways to better protect judges in the future.
Oh yeah, my man! Oh yeah, you going to jail, son.
Video from Baltimore County seems to show police officers punching a teen. What we know about the moments before the violence.
Firefighters gather to honor a fallen friend. We're taking a look at the procession today for Lieutenant Dylan Ronaldo.
18 people killed in Maine. The shooter still at large. The latest on the manhunt for the suspected killer tonight.
And what a nice afternoon as we have breached record high temperatures up to 83 thus far at the airport. 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. still mild if you want to get that lawn mowed or mulch up some of those leaves on the lawn. I'm going to let you know how long the warm, dry weather lasts in my Weather Authority forecast.
At least 18 people have been killed in Maine after a gunman went on a shooting spree overnight.
Right now, the suspect is identified as Robert Carr and is still on the run. There were two active shooting scenes in Lewiston, one at a bowling alley and another at a bar. Witnesses recall the terrifying moments the gunman opened fire.
Out of nowhere, he just came in and there was a loud pop. He was holding a weapon. I just booked it down the lane and I slid basically into where the pins are and climbed up in the machine and was on top of the machine.
The 40-year-old suspect is believed to be a trained firearms instructor and a member of the Army Reserves. Dozens of federal and local investigators have joined the manhunt. 13 other people were hurt.
With 18 confirmed dead, the massacre is the deadliest mass shooting of 2023. It also makes this year one of the deadliest years for mass shootings with a gun since 2006. At least 178 people have now been killed this year in mass shootings with a gun. 186 lost their lives in mass shootings last year. Stay with Fox 45 News for continuing coverage as the manhunt continues. We will have any new developments right here on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
There was a procession this morning for the Baltimore City Fire Lieutenant Dylan Rinaldo. Rinaldo's body was taken from the state medical examiner's office to Duderuck Funeral Home, that's in Essex. He died this week after spending multiple days in the hospital. Firefighter Rodney Pitts died fighting that fire also. Members of the Firefighters Union say the losses are immeasurable.
When you technically fight fire together, you depend on each other to have each other's backs. And when something like this happens, it hits you. It takes your confidence away.
You can get closer than family, and I don't think it's not a bond that's easily duplicated in any other walk of life.
3 other firefighters were hurt during that response. They've all been released from the hospital.
Well, video out of Baltimore County appears to show a police officer punching a teenager. Take a look.
Oh yeah, my man! Oh yeah, you going to jail, son. Chill, Dummy, chill. Stop.
This incident happened near Woodlawn High School yesterday morning. The 1-minute video shows officers eventually bringing the teen to the ground and putting him in handcuffs. Now, Fox 45 News spoke with the 16-year-old and his father. We're told it happened as the teen and his friends were on their way to school and got into a car accident with a Baltimore County officer car. The father says his son was recording the aftermath. Another officer, according to them, aggressively approached the boy. Words were exchanged and the confrontation quickly turned physical, the father calling what happened an act of excessive force.
I'm upset. I'm still upset right now because here's why I'm upset. You never told me why my son was charged. You never told me what the reason he was charged for, what he did.
Baltimore County Police are not releasing details, only saying the teen faces several charges, including second-degree assault and disorderly conduct.
Another top prosecutor is speaking out about how juvenile justice laws are leaving them with their hands tied. Frederick County State's Attorney Charles Smith says he's frustrated with current laws that he says make it nearly impossible to hold young offenders accountable for crime. The Juvenile Justice Reform Act limits those 13 and under to charges for crimes of violence and says a juvenile under 10 can't be charged. Smith says they need to expand the list of crimes young people can be charged with because young people not only know what crimes they can get away with, but adults are taking advantage of the law and using young people to commit crimes for them. As a result, he says they are seeing more repeat offenders who are unable to get help that they desperately need.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I understand the legislators and the recent legislation that has passed. They don't want youth to grow up and have criminal convictions or to be part of the criminal justice system. But really what we're seeing is just delaying this delinquent behavior that turns into adult criminal behavior. And we need to get to these youth sooner.
Maxine Stryker will have more coming up at 5 o'clock.
Tracking the tropics, at least 27 people are dead in Mexico after Hurricane Otis roared along the country's Pacific coast. Tens of thousands of residents in Acapulco are without power right now. Homes have been damaged by the Category 5 hurricane. Search and rescue crews are there right now looking for survivors.
And here's a live check of conditions right here at home. You're looking at live pictures from Baltimore to Towson to Ocean City on the eastern shore. Right now, we continue to track the possibility of record-breaking temperatures.
Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers for a first check of our forecast. The beach actually looks appropriate for these temperatures.
There's a record high temperature today, and there could be more. 83 this afternoon. How about that? We will take it. It's only going to be for a couple of days, then we'll be back to reality. It's kind of a tale of two seasons in our 7-day forecast. But for now, off of our high of 83, we're now at 82. The record, we smashed it, 81 from back in 1978. So we're even still above the record right now. Shorts and short sleeves, the order of the day. Winds out of the southeast at 3 and humidity nice and low at 28%. Good look there on the Mile 1 Towson Cam. Get outside, enjoy it. Some generally 70s and 80s across the board. A lot cooler right around Annapolis. Are influenced by the much cooler Chesapeake Bay temperatures now as we're beginning to cool down those waters there. 83 degrees of high temperature. Again, a new record in Baltimore today. 81 at Westminster, and outside of course, Annapolis, generally in the 70s and low to mid 80s today. Other side of the country, yep, there's the snow still going around Billings, Montana, Rapid City. Then we've got showers in between. Some of those we'll get here maybe Sunday, but especially Monday. And then beyond that, that's when we'll get into the cooler air. But for now, record highs potential and also sunshine. Showers going to stay away at least till the end of the weekend. Temperatures looking good through the evening. Maybe head out on the porch or the deck or a little bit of a walk. Temperatures fall from the 80s through the 70s down into the 50s, 60s overnight tonight. And then for tomorrow, we do it all over again with high temperatures likely back into the 80s. Look at your 7-day forecast. 83 tomorrow. That could break another record with a new record. Record high temperature nearly reached on Saturday. Sunday, 79. Cools down Monday with showers. Halloween, much cooler, blustery, and 57.
Jonathan, thank you. Straight ahead, Maryland teachers expecting a boost, but not all school systems are expecting the same amount. Project Baltimore looks into where the money's going and one of the plans proposed in Baltimore City. An amendment to the recent plastic bag ban in Baltimore County results in a veto by the county executive. We hear from a taxpayer watchdog on what it means for you. And coming up, a travel advisory from the U.S. State Department. More on the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program and what you can do to stay safe abroad. Back now with the war in the Middle East. Overnight, Israel carried out a targeted raid in northern Gaza ahead of a massive ground offensive that's expected to start any day now. Troops and tanks entered Gaza as the fighting continues. More than 7,000 Palestinians have been killed. Nearly 3,000 of them are children. Inside the Gaza Strip, the situation is becoming more dire. Millions are without food, water, and medicine as the airstrikes intensify.
We were hosting displaced people. They came here to the camp center seeking safety, but as you can see, the house is gone.
The number of people believed being held hostage has been raised to 224. And new tonight, the U.S. Department of State issued a worldwide travel advisory due to violence in the Middle East. The State Department has said it's concerned for potential violence against Americans. Officials recommend citizens should sign up for the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program.
It's letting the local embassy or consulate know you're there and have a way to reach you in case of emergency, if there's a terror alert or if they need to evacuate you.
It also recommended to have hard copies of your passport and other important documents when traveling out of the country in case of an emergency. Well, a big change is coming to teacher pay across Maryland. Project Baltimore taking a closer look at how salaries are getting higher and why the standards for success are changing. The FBI raids a Safe Streets location over suspected gang ties. What we know about the gang and the latest on the investigation.
Breaking news tonight, Congressman John Sarbanes will not run for re-election in 2024. By the end of his term, Sarbanes will have represented Maryland in Congress for 18 years.
The congressman saying he is committed to serving out his term, saying he's making the announcement to better prepare the candidates who will fight to replace him. After he leaves Congress, he hopes to work with nonprofits or find new ways to serve his community.
We continue to follow that breaking news out of East Baltimore. The FBI has raided one of the city's Safe Streets locations, and sources tell Fox 45 News it's over possible gang affiliation. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. We have live team coverage this hour. Adam Andrzejewski with Open the Books is standing by to talk about transparency concerns about how Safe Streets uses your tax dollars.
First, Alexa Ashwell joins us live with more on the gang that a Safe Streets employee is accused of being a part of. Alexa?
Kai, Mary, the Black Guerrilla Family, or BGF, has existed for more than 60 years. And here in Maryland, for more than 30 years, the gang over the decades involved in drugs, guns, and violence. The Black Guerrilla Family back in the headlines after a source confirmed the notorious gang is possibly linked to the FBI's raid of a Safe Streets location here in Baltimore.
It wouldn't surprise me to hear that a gang that has infiltrated the prisons, that has infiltrated and controlled so many neighborhoods, is now infiltrating an organization like Safe Streets. During his time with the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, former federal prosecutor Dhruv Vignaraja was involved in prosecuting cases involving members of BGF. There were both individual prosecutions of killers, as well as large-scale prosecutions of multiple members. One of the biggest prosecutions in Baltimore history was of a set involved in the Greenmount area where, dozens of members were indicted. The birth of BGF dates back to the 1960s when the gang was founded inside a California prison. BGF appeared in the Maryland correctional system decades later in the 1990s, and while still a prison gang, expanded its criminal activity beyond prison walls and throughout Maryland. BGF making headlines over the years for drugs, guns, and violence. BGF has had a stronghold over so many neighborhoods. They took over the prisons, they took over the streets. One neighborhood after another has had these BGF sets, these groups that would dominate the drug sales and violent crime of those neighborhoods. And, city and state prosecutors, federal prosecutors for years have been fighting back. In 2013, the Baltimore City State's Attorney indicted nearly 50 BGF members and associates for their alleged role in trafficking drugs, using weapons, and committing acts of violence in a Baltimore neighborhood. That same year, 13 correctional officers were among 25 BGF members indicted in the takedown of an operation that was occurring inside prison walls. Officials then detailing BGF members bribed correctional officers to smuggle drugs, cell phones, and other contraband in and out of the Baltimore City Detention Center, and even had long-term sexual relationships with several correctional officers and impregnated them. Fast forward to now, a decade later, BGF still making headlines. You got to be relentless, and if you take your foot off the pedal, these gangs, which are so well organized, and were here before we started, and I fear will be here, even after we continue our work, they're going to come back.
Now, this isn't the first time BGF specifically has been linked to Safe Streets. Back in 2018, a former worker admitted to storing guns and drugs. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Calls for accountability for Safe Streets and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, which oversees it, have been coming from city council members, community activist groups, and even government watchdogs.
That's right. And joining us live now is the CEO of OpenTheBooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today. Fox 45 News has been demanding more information on all aspects of this city's flagship violence intervention program for years. How does today's FBI raid reflect the need for transparency?
Well, look, that whole program is cloaked in privacy, and it's a public program on one of the most important issues in the city, on violence interruption. And at Fox 45, you've been all over this for years, and you've been fenced out of basic information. For example, you just recently filed a Maryland public records request for the vendor names that provide the training to these violence interrupters. And you can't see that. Who's providing the training to the violence interrupters? And the city redacted those vendor names. You also haven't been able to review a list of names of who is a violence interrupter. Here at the city, we're able to get even the names of police officers. So how can Safe Streets redact those people who work for it, who by their very job duties are, they're supposed to keep the community safe, and we're not allowed to review who they are.
Adam, we don't know what the investigation is going to turn up, so it's unclear whether this organization will be shut down. But until it is, what should happen in terms of transparency so that taxpayers know, A, who works for Safe Streets, what these mediations entail, and where the money is going?
Well, look, the mayor, Brendan Scott, the comptroller, Bill Henry, they ran on transparency. And now they're running away from it in the key programs, the public safety programs right here in Baltimore. They need to get serious, or people need to hold them accountable. That's the only way this thing changes. Look, public information such as what we're talking about is public under Maryland law. And when you redact these things, it is arguably a violation of the law on its face in the state of Maryland. So they need to have radical transparency, forensic audits. We need to be able to follow the money. And quite frankly, the elites, those large organizations like LifeBridge, which runs that center that was raided today, or Catholic Charities that run other centers on the Safe Streets program. Those elite organizations, why are they taking taxpayer money? Look, Catholic Charities got $143 million of gross revenue in the latest year available. The CEO of LifeBridge Health made $2.3 million, and 5 executives made over $750,000 the latest year available. Why do they need taxpayer help? They should lighten the load on the local taxpayer. They should pitch in on their noble charitable mission.
That's an interesting thought and concept, Adam. And in fact, maybe we should have you back on to talk more about that, because that certainly would be lightening the load on taxpayers, right? Adam Andrzejewski with OpenTheBooks.com. Adam, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Well, we want you to weigh in on our question of the day. Should Safe Streets be immediately shut down? So far, 94% of those who voted say yes. You can also vote right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote. And we'll check back in our next hour to see the results. Maryland teachers are getting a big boost in pay thanks to an education overhaul pumping billions of dollars into public schools.
But how teachers can earn more money varies by school system. Project Baltimore's Chris Papps takes a closer look at one plan being considered in Baltimore City and why that's raising concerns.
$60,000. By 2026, that will be the minimum salary for public school teachers in Maryland. In some counties, teachers will see an increase of almost $15,000. Local school systems are now developing plans on how to get there.
So the first step has to be radical transparency.
Adam Andrzejewski is the founder of OpenTheBooks.com, a government watchdog organization that tracks public spending.
Every dime of this new money needs to be accounted for specifically, and who receives it and how it was spent with a gainful purpose.
In 2021, Maryland's legislature passed the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, the largest education spending increase in the state's history. Also known as the Kerwin Plan, the Blueprint pumps $30 billion additional tax dollars into public education during the first 10 years and $4 billion additional dollars every year after that. And much of that extra money goes towards increasing teacher pay. But the Blueprint doesn't just mandate that teachers earn more money, it changes how they earn money. In most Maryland school systems, teachers earn automatic pay increases based on their level of education and the number of years they've worked. The Blueprint mandates a system that's more closely aligned with Baltimore City's, where teacher pay is based on evaluations and leadership assignments.
City schools teachers receive pay increases through what's known as achievement units. They're similar to credits that teachers can earn through evaluations or taking professional development courses. Earning these credits can take months or years. But now, North Avenue is considering a plan to allow teachers to earn more money more quickly.
Since the proposal is being negotiated with the Baltimore Teachers Union, city schools would not provide a copy to FOX45. But according to the Baltimore Banner, the new pay scale would reward teachers for helping other teachers. For example, veteran educators could be compensated for mentoring less experienced teachers or helping write a curriculum. This structure would allow teachers to earn additional money that could be paid out immediately. While North Avenue would not provide details of the plan, the district said in a statement it seeks to create a revitalized teacher career ladder that treats teachers as professionals and focuses on improving practice to advance and accelerate student achievement. The district says the Baltimore City School Board and the Maryland State Department of Education will provide oversight. But in a school district like Baltimore that's been plagued by scandals, Angie Esky worries this kind of pay system could be abused.
It's trust but verify. In the Baltimore City Public Schools, they've done a very bad job of building trust with all of their stakeholders by throwing more money at such a corruptful and wasteful system. How is that going to help students?
Just last month, a Baltimore City Schools police detective, Lauren Smith,
You want to say something to your players, coach?
was arrested and charged with 15 felony counts, including allegations that he fraudulently obtained more than $215,000 in overtime. Last year, following Project Baltimore's reporting, the Inspector General for Education found that city schools, over a 5-year period, inflated enrollment by nearly 1,000 students who were funded but not actually attending school, costing taxpayers nearly $10 million. Also in 2022, following our reporting on grade fixing, the Inspector General found city schools changed more than 12,000 grades from failing to passing over a 4-year period. As a result, the IG said at some schools, as many as 10% of students who graduated should not have. In all of these instances, city schools said the proper checks and balances were in place, but they didn't work. So we asked the interim state superintendent, Dr. Carrie Wright, if she has concerns with oversight and accountability in city schools, especially with a new system that allows teachers to help each other to earn more money faster. Dr. Wright said she has trust in City School CEO, Dr. Sonia Santelises.
Then I would assume that she's also looking at how do we do that and ensure that accountability, transparency, and responsibility are all taken into account when you're putting a new system into place.
But Angie Efsky says history proves otherwise.
The real question here is, are Baltimore City Public Schools fundamentally broken? Can you throw more taxpayer money at the city schools and get performance? And that's something that we just haven't seen bear out over the course of the last couple of decades.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Coming up at 5:15 on Fox 45 News, the Baltimore Teachers Union is now criticizing city schools. The strong words BTU has for the school system's leaders. The county executive shuts down a change to an upcoming plastic bag ban. Fox 45 News is talking to a taxpayer watchdog about what that means for shoppers. The Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers gear up for Game 1 of the World Series. Fox 45 News' Rocco DeSangro tells you everything you need to know.
The road to postseason baseball on Fox 45 is sponsored by Johns Hopkins Children's Center.
Show me one person who predicted a Rangers Diamondbacks World Series before the season began. Considering last year both of these clubs had losing records, I'm not sure anybody expected this to be the matchup. But Texas and Arizona both battled. And both teams had similar paths in postseason play, sweeping the wild card in ALDS, then taking their opposition to 7 games in the championship series. Now the ultimate prize every team strives for all season long, being crowned World Series champs, that's just 4 wins away.
We're really close to doing something really special for the entire state of Arizona, for this organization that's had a lot of hardships over the past 36, 48 months. For us to be where we are right now, it was a good moment.
This team, as I said, it's been an honor to watch them, and so it's great to be here. It's unreal that I'm here, to be honest. I mean, I was sitting at the house for 3 years, and I think here I am going to the World Series. Yeah, that's special, but it's more about them and trying to find a way to get a ring for those guys.
We are your exclusive home for the 2023 World Series. The Fall Classic begins Friday, October 27th. That's tomorrow night. You can watch all the action right here on Fox 45. Zach Gallen of the Diamondbacks and Nathan Eovaldi of the Rangers are those probable pitchers for Game 1 of the World Series. First pitch in Arlington, that's scheduled for 8:03 Eastern Time.
And we may be playing October baseball, but you know what? We are feeling like the heart of summer. 82 degrees, mostly cloudy skies, mainly high clouds on the Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam. And we were 83 last hour, new record for the day. Winds out of the southeast at 3 miles an hour. Humidity not bad, 28%. So it's a warm and dry day. 82 Baltimore, 75 at Bel Air, 80 degrees Columbia. Nice and warm, man. 78 at Laurel. Now down around Annapolis, no, that's not a mistake on the map. Actually, it is 63 and only hit a high of 68. Why? Well, because the bay and the Severn River are there, and those water temperatures, they don't fluctuate quite as quickly as the air temperatures do. And of course, now we're heading into the fall, so those temperatures are gradually coming down. So that influences those near water temperatures. But 83 Baltimore, that smashes the record of 81 from back in 1978. 81 up at Westminster, 74 at Bel Air. Taking a look at the HD radar, some rain around Chicago, even some thunderstorms around Minneapolis. And then there's an all-out snowstorm in portions of Montana. I don't believe that we're going to see anything like that around here, but major cool down as this next weather maker squelches those record high temperatures we're seeing by the time we get to Sunday, Monday. So Halloween's going to be a lot cooler. Temperatures overnight into early tomorrow morning, generally falling into the 50s. Could even have a couple of, in the warmer spots, 60s when you wake up. Again, a real almost summery type of feel setting up as we head through the end of the week. By the heat of the day, we'll say tomorrow, low to mid 80s once again, and that potentially could at least set or maybe tie new records for Friday. Getting close to records on Saturday with a high 83. Some extra cloud Sunday, could see a stray shower, maybe a few showers on Monday. That's our cold front, and then Halloween for trick-or-treating rather. Maybe it'll feel more like Thanksgiving with temperatures only at 57 and a blustery breeze.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, we continue our breaking news coverage on Safe Streets, what we're learning about an FBI raid. First, the Baltimore County executive vetoes a policy weakening the plastic bag ban. What that move means for you. Well, starting November 1st, Baltimore County's Bring Your Own Bag law comes into effect. Fox 45's Megan Gillen has the latest on why a recent push to change that law got the thumbs down from the county executive.
Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski vetoing legislation that would have exempted certain types of bags from the plastic bag ban law, a law that is set to take effect November 1st. Taxpayer watchdog David Williams weighing in on what all of this means for you.
And what the council is trying to do is exempt, mom and pop stores, liquor stores, and really just to have the big businesses pay this. And of course, Megan, businesses don't pay this. People pay this. Consumers pay this. And that's my concern, is that it's going to have a huge fiscal impact on consumers when they go to stores. And you're going to need a bag. When you take stuff home, you'll need a bag, so you'll be paying 5 cents.
So what happens from here, David? Do you think the council would try to override the executive's veto?
Fascinating dynamic, because the council doesn't come back until November 6th, right? And this goes into effect November 1st. So I think there's going to be a time lag between when this goes into effect and when they can override this veto.
This does mark County Executive Olszewski's second ever veto. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, a Safe Streets location is raided by the FBI. What we know about a possible connection to a Baltimore gang. Another prosecutor asking for statewide change. The desperate calls to hold young criminals accountable before they become repeat offenders.
Live from WBFF TV in Baltimore, this is breaking news.
That whole program is cloaked in privacy, and it's a public program on one of the most important issues in the city, on violence interruption.
Fox 45 News continues to follow breaking news tonight after the FBI raids one of the city's Safe Streets locations. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. And according to Fox 45 News sources, the raid was due to possible gang affiliation.
We have extensive live team coverage tonight, bringing you up to date with this breaking story.
Let's begin with Mackenzie Frost, who's been investigating Safe Streets for 2 years at least. She joins us live with what we know about this federal investigation. Mackenzie?
Kai and Mary, we just confirmed that not only did FBI agents show up here at the Bel Air Edison Safe Streets location this morning to execute a search warrant, 2 employees also had federal agents show up at their home. Now, sources close to this investigation tell Fox 45 News that this probe is connected to possible gang affiliation. And we know that this is not the first time that this has been an issue for Safe Streets. Thursday morning in Bel Air Edison, the Safe Streets location getting locked up as a woman captured by Fox 45 News cameras leaving the Safe Streets site.
Was the FBI here this morning?
Have a good day. Locking the door just hours after the FBI on site searching the locations. Sources close to the investigation telling Fox 45 News the probe related to possible Black Guerrilla family gang affiliation. Mayor Brandon Scott and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement issuing a brief statement pledging accountability for anyone found guilty. But this is not the first time BGF specifically has been linked to Safe Streets. In 2018, Ricky Evans, a former Safe Streets worker, admitting to storing guns and drugs here at the Safe Streets location that used to be located off Monument Street in East Baltimore. The feds also say Evans admitted to using the location as a BGF gang meeting site. Well, Monzi says the FBI raid does not and should not diminish the work that Safe Streets Baltimore staff do on a daily basis. It raises questions about the operations. We sent questions to Mayor Scott and Monzi asking how many current Safe Streets employees are breaking the law. Are any other Safe Streets sites under federal investigation? Is this latest black eye for the program enough for you to call for a pause in funding for and operations of Safe Streets? Will you now release the names of the Safe Streets employees to the public? Monzi referring us back to their first statement, and Mayor Scott not answering the questions directly, saying everyone should be held accountable and he will work with the federal partners through this investigation. Despite Fox 45 News' relentless investigation uncovering previous criminal activity from employees and pushing for transparency, let's get a video of this. Mayor Brandon Scott defending the program time and time again.
I know what they do. I in full support of what they do. The public should trust and know, just like they trust our police officers, that these lifesavers are out there doing their work.
We are transparent about the program. We will not risk the integrity of the program for anything.
They're out in the community, and as we go to and grow, as you heard about us announcing Safe Streets 2.0, it's about how we further that work and take it to many different places.
But that has not been reality. Fox 45 News has been asking the city for names of the Safe Streets workers, how those employees are hired, the definition of a mediation, what type of training is provided and by who, along with how the work by Safe Streets employees is tracked. Those questions routinely ignored. Also never answered exactly how the nonprofits running each location spend the millions of dollars in tax money given to them by the city. Now the FBI setting its sight on Safe Streets in City Hall, seemingly standing by its flagship gun violence prevention program. Now the FBI tells me that no other Safe Streets locations were raided in this latest investigation. We're live in Bel Air Edison. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, the Safe Streets program hires former convicts, but it's not clear how the program makes sure their employees don't continue to commit crimes while they're working for Safe Streets. Fox 45 News found one example of a Safe Streets worker charged with selling drugs at his location. Charging documents included this picture of what seems to be him, according to police, holding a bag of drugs. Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live now with a closer look at Safe Streets workers charged with crimes. Jeff?
You know, Safe Streets now has a roster of former employees who had vowed to fight crime, but instead have now been convicted of crime. You may remember a federal indictment accused Vernon Harper, a violence interrupter in Brooklyn, of possessing fentanyl with the intent of distributing it while working for Safe Streets. He pleaded guilty and is now serving 18 months in prison. And in 2021, another federal indictment accused Safe Streets worker Ronald Alexander of being an armed drug dealer and selling fentanyl while on the job with Safe Streets. Earlier this year, we questioned the mayor about the growing list of tax-paid workers who were contributing to crime instead of preventing it.
Just like any other employee in any other industry, if If we find out that folks are in that, whether they're a Safe Streets worker, whether they're a police officer, whether they're a Rec and Parks worker, we'll address that through law enforcement.
The city has long attempted to hire trusted members of the community to work in the Safe Streets program, but it is unclear still what qualifies as a trusted member of the community. We're live at City Hall. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. And then there's the case of Damon Scroggins' murder. Safe Streets worker Ronald Brady Jr. was accused of killing Scroggins in September of 2019. That case went to trial in 2022, but it ended in a hung jury, and he was ultimately acquitted in March. However, the Scroggins family is highly critical of the Safe Streets program. They call it a criminal enterprise.
My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Fox 45 News has been asking about Safe Streets workers for years, and we want to know how workers are trained, how they clock their hours, and how the city is making sure they're not taking part in illegal activity while they're employed by Monzi or Safe Streets itself. We've never received a straight answer to any of those questions. The mayor's office and Monzi as well often ignored our questions outright.
Fox 45 News has also been pressing for answers about how Safe Streets workers handled the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting. 2 people were killed, 28 others hurt in that incident. Monzi says there were Safe Streets workers at the party before the shooting happened, but Monzi says those workers conducted 5 mediations, and those mediations were successful. However, those Safe Streets workers did not tell police nor Monzi about the massive party or any potential threats. The city won't say what a mediation is, how they're recorded, or the criteria for successful mediation. Monzi says there is a form to record mediations, but we pressed the mayor on that, asking to see a blank form.
Have you seen the form that the Safe Streets workers used when they go out in the communities and talk to people, that they keep track of their mediations?
I have probably not seen them in a long time.
Can the public see a blank form?
I think the public should trust and know, just like they trust our police officers, that these lifesavers are out there doing their work.
Well, Fox 45 News followed up with more questions about what information is privileged when talking about the document used to record and track mediations done by Safe Streets workers. We also asked what the public is supposed to base their trust on. The mayor's office ignored those questions. Now, we're not the only ones asking these questions. Some city council members are as well. Councilman Antonio Glover went so far as to say the city should withhold funding for Safe Streets until they're more transparent. Councilman Yitzi Schleifer and Eric Costello have also been outspoken in their demands for transparency, prompting former Monzi director Shante Jackson to criticize them in an op-ed in the Baltimore Sun back in July. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has a look at what council members have been saying about Safe Streets. Rebecca.
Yeah, Mary, kind of everything you just said there. Council members, as you just said, they have been demanding more transparency from Monzi and Safe Streets for months now, and today some of their frustrations boiling over. Take a look at this. This afternoon, Councilman Eric Costello taking to Twitter to slam Monzi director Shante Jackson for a critical op-ed she wrote about him and Councilman Yitzi Schleifer back in July. Costello's tweet reads, quote, "Remember when the former director of Monzi chided us for having the audacity to ask hard questions about Safe Streets?" Yeah, I do. Both Schleifer and Costello have been spearheading growing calls for an audit of the city's public safety agency. The way the program is currently structured, the contracts, employees, and day-to-day operations typically available to the public are hidden. This despite the program being funded by your taxpayer dollars.
Monzi is a city agency. It is right here in City Hall, and so an agency like that should just be part of the agencies that are audited.
I would encourage, Monzi to do is to start being transparent and start answering questions so that we don't have to wait for an audit.
And Costello and Schleifer aren't alone in their calls for more transparency. Recently, Councilman Antonio Glover, as you said, he took those calls a step further. Take a listen to this soundbite.
Right now, I think that until we start to see transparency in data, I think that money should be held to a halt.
Now today I sent questions to the entire city council asking for their reaction to the FBI raid on Safe Streets and if they support calls for an audit on the $20 million agency. Mark Conway, head of the Public Safety and Government Operations Committee, responded with a statement reading, quote, "This is concerning to see and I am seeking additional information. We should always expect public safety agencies and those that receive city funds to carry out important public safety initiatives to follow the law." So far, no other city council members have responded, and they have also all ignored my request for an interview today. Reporting live outside of City Hall, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Rebecca. Fox 45's most recent Safe Streets report led to some major questions about how Safe Streets spends its money. We uncovered the program spent more than $5,000 at a major shoe store in April, $4,000 at stores like GameStop, Bath & Body Works, and also Walmart. Records show the agency spent $2,500 in COVID relief money to take workers to Los Angeles. They billed most of that to the city, including the hotel bar tab. However, the city won't tell Fox 45 News who is training Safe Streets workers, even though the program spent tens of thousands of dollars to unknown entities for training in February and March. That's led many city leaders to call for an audit of Monsey and Safe Streets.
I think an audit does need to be done.
Transparency is key. If you have people that are benefiting from tax dollars, then there should be some accountability there.
Well, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has visited each Safe Streets location multiple times, but we have found few workers. At some sites, we haven't been able to find any employees at all. We've also found some Safe Streets locations have changed, even though city websites still list them in their original locations. Fox 45 News has tried to get answers from former Monsey director Shantae Jackson about the program, but more often than not, she walked away from our cameras and our questions.
Director Jackson, can I ask you a couple of questions? I think the mayor said meet us at the next event. Are you going? You have to realize that we have a job and we have the right to ask questions and get information out.
Director Jackson, can we talk about the multi-year Safe Streets contracts?
We don't have any comment today. I know that you announced your resignation, you're planning to leave. Can you say where you plan to go?
Let me stop right here.
Okay.
Never, ever will I prioritize any news about me over top of news about our young people.
That's why I didn't ask
we
during
can
the
save
press
that
conference.
question for a time when I'm ready to share it. Thank you.
We'd like you to weigh in on our question of the day. Should Safe Streets be immediately shut down? Vote right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
And Fox 45 News has been investigating the Safe Streets program for years, demanding answers about how the program spends taxpayer dollars and how it keeps track of the former criminals it employs.
We will continue our relentless demand for answers. Our commitment to you is to follow your tax dollars and hold elected leaders accountable for the Safe Streets program and any other issues facing Baltimore City.
You can find all of our previous reporting and follow along as our investigation continues on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Also breaking tonight, police have found the body of the man accused of shooting and killing a Maryland judge outside that judge's Hagerstown home last week. According to police, the body of Pedro Argote was found this morning about a mile north of where police found his car, right outside of Williamsport, Maryland. Law enforcement had been searching for Argote for about a week after they say he shot and killed Judge Andrew Wilkinson in the driveway of his home. Police say the shooting came hours after Wilkinson signed off on Argote's divorce, giving his ex-wife full custody of his 4 children and their house.
Last night, Lewiston became yet another community torn apart by senseless gun violence.
Coming up after the break, the manhunt continues for the man who killed 18 people in Maine. We'll take a closer look into the suspect's troubled past.
Plus, an uproar growing louder. Project Baltimore investigates why the Baltimore Teachers Union says it has no faith the school system will back up a new pay plan.
And talk about a seasonal swing in temperatures all in really one day. Temperatures rising about 36 degrees off of morning lows at 47 up to 83 this afternoon. Real fall feel this morning. Feel like summer this afternoon with a new record high. We'll let you know how long this warmth lasts and when rain ruins the forecast in my Weather Authority forecast.
A live look from Lewiston, Maine, where right now an intense manhunt continues for the man who killed 18 people and injured more than a dozen others. According to police, 40-year-old Robert Card is considered armed and dangerous. The violence happening in a restaurant and a bowling alley in Lewiston. It is the state's second largest city, about 36 miles north of Portland. Officials say Card recently reported mental health issues, including hearing voices. They also say he made threats to shoot up a National Guard base.
The full weight of my administration is behind law enforcement's efforts to capture the person of interest, Robert Card.
People in communities near Lewiston are still sheltering in places. Hundreds of state, local, and federal law enforcement officers conduct that manhunt. The Baltimore Teachers Union coming out strongly, insulting city school leaders' credibility over plans to change the pay scale for public school teachers. As Project Baltimore's Chris Papst explains, the school system says its proposed plan would allow city school teachers to earn more money faster, but the union isn't buying it.
This is a scathing response from the Baltimore Teachers Union, which follows a FOX45 report on a proposed plan to change how teachers are paid. In this statement, issued one day after our report, the Baltimore Teachers Union criticizes city schools for prematurely discussing a plan that hasn't been agreed upon, calling it a public relations ploy. Right now, city schools teachers receive pay increases through achievement units, which are similar to credits that teachers can earn for evaluations or taking professional development courses. Earning these credits can take months or even years. The proposed plan would change that, according to the Baltimore Banner. City schools would reward teachers for helping other teachers, for example, mentoring less experienced teachers or helping write a curriculum. This plan would allow teachers to earn additional money that could be paid out immediately. But the Baltimore Teachers Union isn't confident city schools can deliver, saying in its statement, unfortunately, city schools leaders lack credibility when it comes to real-time payments. Our earned salary raises regularly arrive months late. Payment for after-school work is typically delayed without explanation, and we frequently need to fight for the district to honor its commitments. While North Avenue would not provide details of the plan, the district told us earlier this week it seeks to create a revitalized teacher career ladder that treats teachers as professionals. But the teachers union responded strongly to that, saying, "We'll know city school leaders are serious about respecting city schools teachers and treating us as professionals when they agree to common sense commitments that are the norm in other school systems and workplaces." The union says it continues to negotiate with Baltimore City schools. Project Baltimore will be following the progress. I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Take a look at this beautiful drone video of the fall foliage across Maryland. And although the trees are looking like fall, the weather this week, not so much. A little summer-like out there. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers here with when it will start to cool down a bit.
You might have heard me talking there off screen. Those are some fantastic colors we're seeing. We're near peak, actually at peak just north and west of Baltimore. And looks like here in the city, it's only a week or two until we're going to be hitting peak as well. I know by my house in Anne Arundel County, we've got some good colors going, but we still have a little ways to go. And with these temperatures like they are, the warm afternoons, I mean, this is a little too warm, right? 80 degrees right now, actually hit a new record this afternoon at 83. And the cool mornings in the 40s like we saw, that really gets the leaves going. Winds out of the south-southeast at 5 miles now right now. Humidity is low, 29%. Dew points at 45 dry degrees. Toyota East Inner Harbor Skycam. Just a couple of high clouds, and this will be kind of the fare for the next several days. Temperatures at 80 here in Baltimore right now, 80 degrees at Cockeysville, 81 at Westminster. The sun's now beginning to set. I think our bay breeze has kind of cut off a little bit at Annapolis, so that's helped the temperatures to pop up. They were in the 60s, low to mid 60s. Now it's 71 here at Annapolis. Of course, the bay temperatures are really beginning to drop quickly, and they're kind of staying there even though the air temperatures are warming. the water temperature doesn't adjust quite as quickly. So near water areas are a bit cooler than everybody else. 83 degrees a high temperature today here in Baltimore. That a new record, the old record 81 from back in 1978's 85 at Laurel, 82 at Frederick, 80 at Cumberland, and even right around 80 along the eastern shore. HD radar shows a batch of showers north and west into southern Canada, all the way back down to Chicago and St. Louis. You hop over that is the demarcation between seasons. How about winter storm warnings? A multi-day snowstorm going on over portions of the northern Rockies into Montana. So I guess consider ourselves lucky, right? Fair weather high pressure, our Maine weather maker, stays here actually through the end of the week and the early weekend. Then those showers, they do come, I think, maybe Sunday, but especially as we head into Monday, and that's a big cool down. That's going to lead in after that. Future scan overnight into early tomorrow morning. Temperatures from 10 p.m. through about 6 a.m. falling down through the 60s into the 50s to near 60, and that's where we stay tomorrow morning. Not as cool as we started this morning, and then a nice warm afternoon for tomorrow as we make it to 80 to 85. All right. Taking a look at the forecast tonight, 54 clouds and stars tomorrow, threatening another record, 82. Clouds and sun and warm, and it looks like another nice day for Saturday, 75. Could see a stray shower on Sunday, clouds and maybe a shower or two on Monday, 71. And then for Halloween, mid to upper 50s, blustery, mostly cloudy and cooler. Could even see maybe a spot shower. Going to have to watch that. And then sunshine and cool all the way through Wednesday and Thursday.
Coming up after the break, anticipation is building as we look ahead to tomorrow night's first World Series matchup. Rocco DeSango joining us live to break down all of the highlights heading into the game.
The road through postseason baseball on Fox 45 is sponsored by Johns Hopkins Children's Center.
Show me one person who predicted a Rangers-Diamondbacks World Series before the season began. Considering last year both of these clubs had losing records, I'm not sure anybody expected this to be the matchup. But Texas and Arizona both battled. And both teams had similar paths in postseason play, sweeping the wild card in ALDS, then taking their opposition to 7 games in the championship series. Now the ultimate prize every team strives for all season long. Being crowned World Series champions, that's just 4 wins away.
We're really close to doing something really special for the entire state of Arizona, for this organization that's had a lot of hardships over the past 36, 48 months. For us to be where we are right now, it was a good moment.
This team, as I said, it's been an honor to watch them, and so it's great to be here. It's unreal that I'm here, to be honest. I mean, I was sitting at the house for 3 years, and to think here I am going to the World Series. Yeah, that's special, but it's more about them and trying to find a way to get a ring for those guys.
We are your exclusive home for the 2023 World Series. The Fall Classic begins Friday, October 27th. That's tomorrow night, and you can watch all the action right here on Fox 45. Zach Gallen of the Diamondbacks and Nathan Eovaldi of the Rangers, they're the probable pitchers for Game 1 of the World Series. First pitch in Arlington is scheduled for 8:03 p.m. Eastern Time.
Rocco, thanks. Coming up after the break, the FBI raids a Safe Streets location. A closer look at the suspected gang affiliation.
We have continuing coverage of the breaking news tonight. The FBI raid on one of the city's Safe Streets locations, and according to sources, it's because of possible gang affiliation.
And it comes after years of Fox 45 investigations into the program.
Joining us live tonight to weigh in is lifelong Baltimore resident, Pastor P.M. Smith. Pastor Smith, thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you both. My privilege.
Sure. Well, for years, there have been calls for more transparency into the Safe Streets program. You've been on Fox 45 News talking about this, particularly on our morning show. How do you believe today's FBI raid reflects on the need for that transparency? And do you believe Safe Streets can continue to operate?
Number one, there's a name that we must mention, the U.S. Attorney, Mr. Eric Barron. His fingerprints are all over this. He made a pledge in August that he would pursue waste, fraud, and corruption through the CARES bill, the money that came to the city that they gave to Safe Streets and other organizations. He's kept his promise. He said he would pursue Al Capone strategies. That means he's going after the white collar, the bad guys with the ink pens, in order to get to the bad guy with the gun. And he's doing that job. I think it's going to work out.
And we know as the organization gets millions of dollars in taxpayer money, do you believe Monzi should be more transparent, provide more information on the people who actually work for Safe Streets and how they do their jobs? We've been trying to get these answers, and also how they spend taxpayer money.
Miss Mary, they work for me and you.
Right.
They are more secret than a grand jury. They're more protected than a grand jury. That makes no sense. And the mayor is standing right in the midst of this. As far as I'm concerned, Monzi, the mayor, Johns Hopkins, Catholic Charities, Life Bridge, all need to be checked out by Mr. Barron. They need to pass a true or false test, and if they fail it, I think there ought to be a jail waiting somewhere in Arizona or in Washington State.
Pastor Smith, do you believe there is some value, and the mayor's talked about this a lot, in having people not committing crimes or using Safe Streets as kind of a shroud or cloak to commit crimes, but having people who've been out there in the life trying to intervene and stop conflicts before they happen? Do you believe there could be some value in that?
Theoretically, yes, but I haven't seen it. He hasn't demonstrated it. Every time somebody raises a question, he says, we know, but we don't know. All we know is what you say. And I don't believe the young man. I don't have confidence in him. I don't trust what he says. All I do is look at how he responds to Miss Mackenzie Frost. It's like a vampire seeing a cross. He runs from her. Anybody that would run from Miss Mackenzie who's simply seeking the truth is not telling the truth. That's where our mayor is now. I want Mr. Barron to follow through on this. I want him to hold everybody accountable. I want him to make sure the mayor is not using Monzi or Safe Streets or Catholic Charities as a front for criminal engagement.
All right, Pastor P.M. Smith, thank you. Always a lively conversation with you.
Always.
We do appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. And as we previously mentioned, the raid was a result of possible gang affiliation.
Now, Fox 45's Alexa Ashel joins us live in studio with more on the gang at the Safe Streets employee is accused of being a part of. Alexa?
Yes, Kai Mary, the Black Guerrilla Family, or BGF, has existed for more than 60 years. Here in Maryland for more than 30 years. The gang over the decades involved in drugs, guns, and violence. The Black Guerrilla Family back in the headlines after a source confirmed the notorious gang is possibly linked to the FBI's raid of a Safe Streets location here in Baltimore.
It wouldn't surprise me to hear that a gang that has infiltrated the prisons, that has infiltrated and controlled so many neighborhoods, is now infiltrating an organization like Safe Streets.
During his time with the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, former federal prosecutor Dhruv Vignarajah was involved in prosecuting cases involving members of BGF.
There were both individual prosecutions of killers, as well as large-scale prosecutions of multiple members. One of the biggest prosecutions in Baltimore history was of a set involved in the Greenmount area where, dozens of members were indicted.
The birth of BGF dates back to the 1960s when the gang was founded inside a California prison. BGF appeared in the Maryland correctional system decades later in the 1990s, and while still a prison gang, expanded its criminal activity beyond prison walls and throughout Maryland. BGF making headlines over the years for drugs, guns, and violence.
BGF has had a stronghold over so many neighborhoods. They took over the prisons, they took over the streets. One neighborhood after another has had these BGF sets, these groups that would dominate the drug sales and violent crime of those neighborhoods. And, city and state prosecutors, federal prosecutors for years have been fighting back.
In 2013, the Baltimore City State's attorney indicted nearly 50 BGF members and associates for their alleged role in trafficking drugs, using weapons, and committing acts of violence in a Baltimore neighborhood. That same year, 13 correctional officers were among 25 BGF members indicted in the takedown of an operation that was occurring inside prison walls. Officials then detailing BGF members bribed correctional officers to smuggle drugs, cell phones, and other contraband in and out of the Baltimore City Detention Center, and even had long-term sexual relationships with several correctional officers and impregnated them. Fast forward to now, a decade later, BGF still making headlines.
You got to be relentless. And if you take your foot off the pedal, these gangs, which are so well organized, and were here before we started, and I fear will be here, even after we continue our work, they're going to come back.
And Kai Mary, this isn't the first time BGF specifically has been linked to Safe Streets. You may recall back in 2018, a former worker admitted to storing guns and drugs. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Turning to a city in crisis, we're following 3 big stories for you.
Vacant homes across the city are proving to have dire impacts on the very people trying to rehab those homes. How the ongoing crime crisis is deterring those trying to rebuild Baltimore.
City Councilman Eric Costello sounding the alarm on public safety. The letter highlighting the top issues in his district and how critics are reacting.
Juvenile violence is soaring in Baltimore and across the state. Police, parents, even prosecutors are sounding the alarm. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker reports.
It's yet another prosecutor speaking out to Fox 45 saying they're unable to hold juveniles accountable. And he says the real victims here are the young people who aren't getting the help they need because of the laws on the books. Frederick County State's Attorney Charles Smith is echoing the words we've heard time and time again from top prosecutors across Maryland.
We have a big problem with juvenile crime from start to finish, quite frankly.
Frustrated with the current laws on the books, prosecutors, including Smith, say it's been nearly impossible to hold young offenders accountable for crime.
We do need to expand the list of crimes that we can charge younger children with. We have younger children committing serious offenses, first and second degree burglaries, distribution of heroin and fentanyl, and we just don't have jurisdiction really to get them into the criminal justice system right now.
The Juvenile Justice Reform Act limits those 13 and under to charges for crimes of violence and says a juvenile under 10 cannot be charged. And Smith says young people not only know what crimes they can get away with, but adults are also taking advantage of the law.
We see serious felonies being committed by 12-year-olds. And again, a lot of times they're put up to do this by people who are in their 20s or even 30s.
As a result, he says they're seeing more and more repeat offenders who are unable to get the help they so desperately need.
It's very frustrating, and people need to understand that really the biggest thing we can do to fight crime is to get these youthful offenders in the system and get them the resources that they need early.
Smith says there's a political bent that kids need to be kept out of the criminal justice system, but he believes often they're best served in it. He's hopeful Annapolis lawmakers will take a closer look at the current laws on the books come January and make some meaningful changes.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I understand the legislators and the recent legislation that has passed. They don't want youth to grow up and have criminal convictions or to be part of the criminal justice system. But really what we're seeing is just delaying this delinquent behavior that turns into adult criminal behavior. And we need to get to these youth sooner.
In Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you'd like to contact them about public safety legislation, their phone numbers and email addresses are here on your screen.
Well, Councilman Eric Costello sent a letter to Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Anthony Barksdale describing a crime in his district in which a man on a scooter was mugged along a well-lit street in front of several surveillance cameras. Fox 45's Patrice Sanders continues our team coverage tonight with reaction.
Baltimore City Councilman Eric Costello says he's lost faith in this administration to solve the city's crime problem. His frustration follows a weekend that saw 49 different incidents in his district. He sent a letter to Baltimore's Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Anthony Barksdale, demanding a plan of action. Spokesperson for community group Peace, Eurypsy Morgan, applauds him for speaking up.
You know, I think to the councilman, I have to say thank you. Thank you for speaking up, because when we do town halls and when we're in the community, this is the #1 issue that we hear from residents. You know, the mayor comes out and he touts this crime plan and he talks about how safe the city has become under his watch. And yet everybody around is scratching their heads saying, wait a second, but my car just got broken into, or I know somebody, or I was the victim of a crime. And it feels like the mayor has just been ignoring the reality of what's going on in favor of numbers that boost his administration. And look, I'm glad that the councilman is finally speaking up and saying that's not the case. That's not what people and residents are feeling in Baltimore.
Now, the mayor does continue to point to homicide and non-fatal shooting numbers. Those are down in the city. He also acknowledges that car thefts are up. Eurypsy says the mayor could do even more, even when it comes to legislation coming out of Annapolis, saying he has the most powerful and largest platform in Baltimore. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
When you get anything that happens like this, you go empty.
Still ahead tonight, the fallout continues after an active shooter kills 18 people in Maine. The manhunt underway as families search for missing loved ones.
And if you're thinking of doing a little evening walk or stroll after a record warm afternoon, looks real nice for this evening. Temperatures gradually falling through the 60s, just a couple of patchy clouds, and it looks like also a couple more record warm days on the way. I'm going to let you know how warm things get, how long it stays, and when the rains come. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.